Vibe Talks. Vibe Talks. More than just music.
Hey everybody, this is Giancarlo Aulino reporting for Vibe 105 with a Sports VIBEtalks segment where we're going to be talking about all things professional wrestling. Today, I'm happy to be joined by my guest. You've seen him on television many times. He made a name for himself in the WWE. He's wrestled around the world. He's currently one half of the NWA World Tag Champions. He's Aron Stevens. Aron, how you doing?
I am lovely. How are you?
Oh, doing great. In terms of now, like you're wrestling during this pandemic time, I'm sure it's a different thing for everybody. How have you been handling this pandemic?
Again, in terms of the overall pandemic, I've tried to just kind of divert my attention into constructive things, a lot of reading, learning, and things like that. Because I believe life is an ebb and flow, so to speak, and this is definitely more of an ebb than a flow. But where we got the light at the end of the tunnel, and I think a lot of us are going to come out of the pandemic and are coming out of the pandemic better people. I think whether it's more or a more enlightened of the world, shall we say, or how we view life and things like that. So I think a lot of good is going to come out of this pandemic. It's already starting to. So that's been fine. On the wrestling side of things, it's been very interesting with no people. I've tried to limit matches, but I've only been in matches since the pandemic. I was robbed of the NWA national title, but in another match, I've won the NWA tag title with Kratos. So that's been good. Again, the no people, a little strange, especially because I'm always about like being in tune with the people and stuff. So that's been interesting, but you know what? We proved that we can do it. So there you go.
Yeah, and it's an interesting time because a lot of people now that they're wrestling, they're even reminiscing of when they started in the business because there was no fans for a lot of them. You start in a gym, you get the mix of things, you get the hang of everything. So I want to raise this question to you. I know you started off really young being a wrestler. What was your first day like and what do you remember about that?
Kowalski's. I was 16 and I remember Killer Kowalski, or Walter, as he was known to his students and people that knew him. He taught me how to lock up. It was outside the ring in front of the mirror. I'll never forget that. Taught me how to lock up, taught me a hammer lock and all that. And then the first day I got to go in the ring, which was pretty cool. And then that was a big deal. And then, of course, some of the older guys, they thought that it was like, who's this kid going in the ring the first day? Because I guess that wasn't a thing back then. It was interesting. I took my bumps and bruises and, I was never in any danger, but they, the older students, they roughed me up a little bit, but it was, it made you tougher. And I don't know if wrestling is like that nowadays. I could say I don't think it is, but I haven't seen, as far as at the, on the ground floor when people are breaking in and things like that. Cause I don't really, I don't hang around wrestlers that much. So, who knows? But that was my personal experience with it. And, I wouldn't trade it for the world.
And like that first day, I'm sure you're young, you go home, you're a teenager at the time. Did you feel like, okay, I made the right decision? Or were you thinking to yourself, what did I get myself into?
Yes, I absolutely did. 100%. And let me just clarify, like, there was no like hazing or anything like that. No, it was just, okay, this kid wants to be a man's world. And they didn't make any exceptions for me. It wasn't like that. It was just like, okay, you're with us. This is how we do it. Let's make sure you know how to be here and this and that. Because again, like I know, I don't personally, I'm not someone that likes to just, you're not like the rest of us in terms of maybe you're younger or whatever it is in any situation like that. I'm not going to take it easier on someone. I'd rather they'll be a little bit kinder and stuff, but at the same time, you have to know if they have the physical aptitude to do this. And so it was never in any danger. There was never any like bad things done to me. It was just a a good solid, like, okay, like, welcome to the wrestling business, kid. So that's all. But I started training back in '98.
Wow.
So yeah, that was, I was in high school.
And was that like different at the time? Like you're going to high school and then you know that you're a wrestler too, or
And especially like the weird thing was, I remember being, it was a Friday night specifically. And it was a Lynn Armory, Lynn, Massachusetts. And there was a whole thing, man, like Edge and Christian were on the show, like, cause there was third-party bookings from WWE back then. And I remember I opened up the show and it was, we did this crazy tag match and had people yelling and screaming and just insanity. And then, you're sitting in homeroom, that morning having a nun telling you to tuck your shirt in, and then you got your shirt off and you're getting steel chairs swung at your head. So it was, in a sense, you grew up fast. Like I kind of had a different view of the world than a lot of my classmates. But it was still fun and it was awesome. And I wouldn't trade that for anything in the world.
and the indie scene, I'm sure at that time, like WWE, WCW,
1,500, 2,000 people in an armory going nuts, way different. Nothing like the indie scene now.
wow. And did you come across like some of the stars at the time, or was it a little bit more reserved in terms of booking?
Like Edge, Christian, Val Venus, they were all in the shows. They'd come occasionally. Goldust was there. So it was cool.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah. And like going on to like WWE, you had your fair share of stints, inventing your characters and chaotic wrestling, your Idol Stevens, OVW. When you go in back to WWE, though, a lot of people most know you for playing Damien Sandow, that character. How did that all come about for you? Like, what were the preliminary stages for that?
It just kind of evolved. I was wearing pink tights on a show, and it was like, okay, how do we make more of a presentation with the pink tights? And well, maybe we cover it up. And it was Dusty Rhodes' idea to get the robe because someone from the office, who I was actually on FCW, I was like main eventing all the house shows, and fans were going nuts because no one was doing anything like I was doing. And a guy from the office who will remain nameless, who's not there anymore, was like, they told Dusty and Dr. Tom I was too bland. And they were like, what? Like, do you even watch the show? And so it was just funny. It was like, okay, so Dusty's like, all right, we're going to give him bland now. And we came up with the old school Luthez robe, and it just kind of evolved. And, you kind of went with it. And it wasn't until like the day I debuted, Vince was like, yeah, you're the intellectual savior of the masses. So I'm like, well, I guess I better act like a smart guy now. So there we go.
How was Vince McMahon, like in terms of your development when you went up to the main roster? Like, what was the first conversation you had with him?
Pretty much said, you're the intellectual savior of the masses.
Wow. He didn't give you like a pep talk or saying we have this plan for you, that like he just sent you out like freedom wise?
We went and like, we're going to see how it goes. And yeah, that was it.
Wow. So when you went up to the main roster at that time, some of the guys were maybe on the verge of retiring or slowing down, like Shawn Michaels, Undertaker. So who are some of the veterans that you talked to and that helped you in your early on in your career?
I never really had help from a veteran, to be honest. Nobody actually, the truth, ever like took me under the wing up there, or the agents were cool. Arn Anderson, amazing. Dean Malenko, Fit Finley. Those guys are just those three in particular are just amazing. And to this day, I respect them so much. Jamie Noble was cool once I kind of got up there and got to know him a little better. Like I'll say this, Mike Rotundo. When I went and did my tryout matches, he was the guy that like, okay, he'd be here, and like really went to bat for me. Mike Rotundo, I owe a lot to. If it wasn't for Rotundo, I don't know if the stand-up would have been as soon as it was. And again, he's another guy I put in the category Arn, Fit, Dean. Captain Mike, he's a first-class human being, and he's a first-class wrestler, and he's a first-class agent. And how he is not there is just mind-blowing to me.
And like during that time too, I'm sure a lot of people know that WWE travels all around the world. Like they have a crazy schedule. What was a typical schedule like when you were in WWE?
You have a day and a half home. Your
Wow.
plane lands at 11:30 on a Wednesday. You know, you've been up since 5 a.m. You catch a flight, and you do your laundry. Then Friday, you are getting up for 6 in the morning, catching a flight, 3 house shows. Then you do 2 TVs. Then you do it again. There was no time at home. It's funny. Like I hear now how the schedule is, and I'm like, oh my god. Well, I mean, this is post-pandemic too. Like, or I'm sorry, pre-pandemic, and like that schedule is nothing. You know, I mean, for what they did and what they expected of us, yeah.
And
It was
holidays and stuff, like how often?
no. I mean, Christmas, day after Christmas, we'd leave, and we'd get home New Year's, which was, I mean, it was a very lucrative loop, which was cool. But no, there was no like birthdays and like people getting time off. I hear like top guys that are not insured or anything. It's like, oh, I need some time off. We would never think about doing that.
Wow.
Ever think about doing that. But you know, the office is, I think, you know what, with some guys, they're just, for some reason, they're more lenient. But I never, ever got any special treatment from the office or anything like that. Like I never once, no one ever made an exception in my case. You know what I mean? And they would with some guys, but look, that's what they do. And it's like that in any, this isn't just, you know, evil to be. No, it just, sometimes some people get breaks, sometimes other people don't. That's it. You know, people compensated me for it, and life goes on.
Yeah, and like so even on that term of the topic of scheduling, like how do you maintain your sanity, I guess, because you can go on like autopilot, right, during that time?
You don't. That's pretty much, yeah, you know.
So like when you're going to the building, like do you think, okay, I'm going through the motions of this? Like how do you stay committed, I guess, to your craft and like a character?
No, for me, anytime I heard my music, it was game. Like no matter what you got going on, you hear that music and you go to the curtain, you're going customer. Bottom line, end of discussion, no ifs, ands, or buts.
Wow. Yeah, that's commitment right there. I don't know, like not too many people can do that. I don't think you guys get the respect you deserve in terms of like the schedule, like what you're just describing there. It's crazy. Do you feel people give you like when you talk about other industries, do you feel like you get that?
I tell you what, acting is a different deal because of the just the way you're taken care of. Like every time I've flown out to an acting job or gig, like they fly you first class, put you up in hotels, you don't have to worry about anything. And with wrestling, it's like, look, I'm 6'4", is like about 250 when I was with WWE. You know, you're flying in coach, and like they fly you commercial, they fly you coach, and they expect you to land overseas and go. Like that is so insane. I mean, I'm like being cramped and, you know, it's like, come on. I mean, that's just me. It's classless on their part, and that's just, I'm sorry, but that's how. And this is not. I felt that way when I was there. You know, they think, oh, we want to take care of our talent. We want to take care of our talent. No, then you know what? Charter a flight. Like at least let your talent, when you're going to be cramped up, you know, for hours, and you know you break your back for that company, and like, come on, a little respect. And acting, it's just different. But again, acting has a union. Wrestling doesn't. I am not in favor for a union in wrestling, and I will say this, because if wrestling were to unionize, you know, you would have a lot of smaller promotions suffer. And, you know, again, how do you structure pay? How do you, like, there's so many things that it's just not conducive to pro wrestling. So I am not for a union in pro wrestling. That's just me. However, I am for reform in terms of how they take care of their talent like that. You know, I mean, because they, when I was there, you know, again, I was compensated, but in terms of the travel, obviously I wasn't, and nobody really was appreciated. Like oh, well, you know, if you move up on the card, you go to first class. Well, wrestling's fake. So you get to pick who wins and who loses. So you get to pick. It's so stupid. And, you know, I again, to me, and especially with people that know what we go through day in, day out, I get it. It's a publicly traded company and everything like that. But I just thought it was classless how they treated a lot of their talent.
And for those just joining us here on Vibe 105, we're being joined by NWA wrestler Aron Stevens. Aron, another thing there, like a lot of people don't really recognize how difficult it is to be a bad guy in wrestling because everybody, they kind of want to be that cool bad guy. And I think what you had a gift of is, even though a lot of people like you, like behind the scenes, you're a great guy. When you go to the ring, you have this gift of getting people to be invested and hate you. So how did you develop that when you were a wrestler in WWE?
Funny, you just do it enough times and you kind of pick up some tricks, and then you kind of blend it in, and just you do what works for you. You know, I think adaptability is the key. And I may be a bad example because I get bored very easily, especially with characters. You know, or it's funny because I'm kind of known as the guy that doesn't have like one character that's never, you know what I mean? I can kind of morph into different things, which is cool. And it kind of keeps me stimulated mentally. So even though like you may have the same tights or whatever, like if you can always constantly reinvent yourself, that is the key. It's to constantly be evolving and be open to kind of taking a direction that necessarily you may not think is the best direction, but you see what the office gives you, and you go from there. And again, like, I'm not bashing WWE. You know, did I agree with a lot of the scripts they gave me? No, but they put me on TV, and I am very grateful for that. And it was my job to say, whatever script I have, I'm going to do that to the best of my ability, regardless. And it always kind of bothered me when people, they sign up, you know, and like, oh, I want to be a wrestler, I want to work for WWE, and then they leave and they turn bitter. It's like, no. Everyone knows what when you sign a contract, you know what you sign up for. At least have the scruples, shall we say, to like acknowledge that post WWE.
Yeah, and like just even on that topic, like you were bringing up there about like reinventing your character, and a lot of times like wrestlers maybe fall into sticking to the same thing. So do you think that has helped you prolong your career and have this long career in every organization?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, adaptability is key. You know, sometimes, and you don't know, maybe the office says, keep your character the same. Okay, what are you going to do? It's an individual thing. It's very much an individual thing. And, you know, to me, as long as you're in tune with your audience, everything will be okay.
Oh, it just cut out. Sorry about that. Do you hear me okay? I'm going to edit this out, don't worry. Oh, okay, perfect. Yeah, it just cut out. My apologies. But yeah, even on top of that too, like reinventing yourself, you took some time off after when you left WWE, went to Impact, and then retired from the business and made your return here in Toronto, Mississauga Battle Arts. When you were there, like, I want to give our listeners a better idea because you came out. Some fans thought they were going to get this baby face Aron Stevens. You flipped the script. What do you remember most about that night?
Telling the story about what happened to me and a dear friend of mine who will remain nameless at a Costco the day before. And I kind of just spun it to where I was like, oh, this is what society has degenerated to. And so it was just kind of fun there. And it was cool to kind of spend a month there. You know, just I love Canada. You know, I'm half Canadian, and yeah, it's such a great place. And again, I have like a lot of very, very good friends. Right, I say friends, but like family up there. And I don't say that about a lot of people in general, let alone people from the wrestling business. But yeah, like I have some family up there.
And that night, like, were you thinking like, okay, this is going to be testing the waters? Like, were you fully invested? Like, I want to get back into wrestling. Like, what was your mentality that night?
I just still do it. I had no plan. I just like, you know what? Let me go hang out with my buddies. And but then it was funny. Like, shortly after that, and NWA called because I did that. It's funny. I did Canada, and then came back to California, got the call to go to Hawaii. I was in Hawaii for almost a month.
Wow.
And then while I was in Hawaii, that's when Billy Corgan called me and like, oh, okay, I'll go to Atlanta. Who cares? And so I did that. And then like next thing I know, I'm in the NWA. Okay, here we go. So that was kind of how that happened.
Yeah, and transitioning into that, actually, like the NWA, it's a studio wrestling environment. You run around to companies that were in arenas. So what is the studio environment like in the NWA?
No, I mean, a crowd's a crowd, whether you're in a studio or in an arena, it's just, ears open and you kind of just listen and go from there. So.
And what was your reaction when you went there the first time and saw that?
It was cool. I actually appreciated the love when I first walked out. I was like, oh, this is nice. This is cool. And then of course it quickly, things came to the festivities came to a screeching halt. And then I was just, being booed and everything, which was fun. It was kind of like I was back in my happy place.
Like, you had creative freedom there too, or did you have to get some of that like green lit to do it?
No, it was a lot of creative freedom, and it was awesome. So I'm very, very grateful for that.
Is that something that you think a lot of companies should be offering more of, the creative freedom for their talent?
It depends on the talent. It all depends on the talent. Some people need direction. Some people do well with creative freedom. Some people need a little bit of both. I think you need to steer the ship in terms of whoever the booker is, and who creative and stuff like that. Like, this is the direction we want to go. And then, as a talent, okay, you can kind of get there your own way within the margins of what will better serve the show and help the company. So that's just my humble opinion.
For those just joining us here on Vibe 105, we're being joined by Aron Stevens, NWA wrestler and one half of the NWA Tag Team Champions. Aron, I want to go back to you're bringing up about reinventing yourself, and one thing you did do is in NWA, you reinvented yourself once again. What was it like being that karate character?
It was awesome. Question Mark is a pleasure to work with. Had so much fun with the Question Mark. And, again, not what I thought I would be at the end of the first set of tapings. We just really went from, okay, I'm back, I'm Hollywood guy. And then all of a sudden, okay, I'm karate guy, let's do it. And it was such a great opportunity to be a part of it, do it. And it was just a really positive experience in pro wrestling, which is not something I had, especially my last little bit in pro wrestling. And that's why I'm still with NWA.
Yeah. Did you take any, look at other people who played a karate character in the past and
Nope.
As inspiration?
Nope. I know Billy Graham did a karate gimmick.
Yeah.
Didn't really go over well. So it was something to be like, okay, the premise of that character was not a expert in karate. It was the suburban karate instructor who claimed to know karate and clearly did not. You ever seen the Fist Foot Way with Danny McBride?
No, might have missed that one.
Okay, yeah, but it was that. It was literally clearly I am not a karate man, but it's the typical just BS, and it was fun though. It was fun.
And did you think it was going to get over the way it did with the fan base?
Yep. It's funny because people say that, yes. If the thing is, when people ask me about Mizdow was cheered, but then if you look at Intellectual Savior, how much he was booed, right? Yes, I expect everything I do to get over. The only reason, Mizdow got over because it worked, but it was consistency. I was dressing up as someone different every week, and that was the first thing where they let me kind of be in a role and gave me consistent TV time, and I took care of the rest. So, yeah, if something the reason why I've had the success I've had, if I'm doing something and it's not getting over, I will drop it like a hot potato. I don't have an ego like that. Okay, this isn't working. We're going to do something else. And then you kind of just listen and be in tune. And that's, in my opinion, how like the best way to ensure just getting a character over.
And now on United Wrestling Network on Primetime Live, you're kind of reinvented yourself.
Well, that's NWA. That's on a the NWA partnership and stuff like that. So it's still under the NWA banner. I've actually been helping out more behind the scenes with the United Wrestling Network, and that's been such a positive experience. Big thanks to Dave Marquez and John and Nick, who have been really cool. Emily, who is like my right hand on those shows. So it's been good, and Precious is wonderful too. Like I have to, they run a tight ship. They're the VPs of stagehand operations, and they do a great job with it, because with a live show, to do a live show every week, that's not an easy thing. But I tell you what, those girls have such an amazing job. The show wouldn't be what it was if it wasn't for Emily and Precious. So
yeah, and like even you were talking about Billy Corgan, and a lot of people like this about him, that he's not growing up in the business like a Vince McMahon, where it's like passed down him after generation. So what is it like dealing with him, and how are his perspectives different?
Amazing. I think Billy is somebody who is very much in tune with the public. And at the same time, he's an artist first and foremost. And I've always approached wrestling like that. A lot of guys like, just go out there and do my like, no, this is performance art. This is 100% performance art. And it's funny because like him and we're very much on the same page in terms of just like character development and how it's been a very, very positive experience, and an honor to work with him. So
yeah, and like just even him, like he's a rock star coming into wrestling. So does that maybe help in your opinion?
Yes. Being in tune with the audience, being able to think outside the box, which is huge. Like that's something I've always kind of done in wrestling, and he's done that in music. So when you have, in my opinion, right, WWE has only been around for like almost 20 years or something now. But like, okay, you have the WWF, and you can trace the lineage of the WWF and this and that. But before that, the NWA, like there's no three letters in pro wrestling active today that have a tradition like those three letters. This is not, in my opinion, this is not for debate. Even if you go back far enough to WWF, that was part of the NWA.
Yeah.
So like that roots run deep there. And when, the presentation of NWA power and just how everything was kind of presented, you take that traditional template and you take the template of matches that are fun to watch with distinct characters, promos that help the characters get over. It's a very, to me, it was a very easy show to watch. It was a fun show to watch. It left people wanting more. And, but you also are able to think outside the box a little bit. And that to me keeps the product relevant today, in 2020. 2019 when it first came out too, like it keeps it relevant. It keeps it cutting edge. So you're not watching like essentially a carbon copy of 1985, because if you did that, that wouldn't work. The wrestling style is different. Like, just everything, just society's different. But at the same time, it's like, you're rooted in tradition, yet kind of carving your own path. And I think that's just a wonderful thing that NWA does. And you know what, for the United Wrestling Network, Dave has a very old school mentality. Dave was, very closely associated with NWA for a long time. And in his kind of way of doing things, I think you can see that in Primetime Live, to where it's, we're not going outside of the box with these storylines and trying to get too weird, or one where just it's an easy show to, and that's, to me, like that's what you want. That's a cool thing.
Yeah, it's a really good show to watch. Like, and it flies by too. The psychology too of the wrestlers, which is a very underrated aspect of it. Do you think too much companies right now rely on having a high spot every 2 seconds compared to just slowing it down?
One was got over where I not wanted to be for a long time. I was over a friend's house and they had a pay-per-view, and the two people that were over was R-Truth and Daniel Bryan. Everyone else, their music would hit and nobody was reacting, and that to me was like, oh my god, like because I couldn't believe it. Nobody cared, and I think it's because they want to see high spots, but there's no investment in the individuals. Yeah. Whereas Daniel and Ronnie, like their characters are so strong, and they're also both great in the ring, but like it just didn't make sense, you know. Like I don't know, maybe they want it that way, so if no one's over, they can pay people. Who knows? But I would be embarrassed if my music hit and I got that kind of a reaction. It would, like, I'd hang them up, because it's just not, in my opinion, what the business is. Like, there's no stars, true stars. But that's just my opinion. So,
do you think that's a negative now? Like, when people look back on the 80s, everyone says Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, then the 90s, Austin and The Rock. Do you think that's kind of hurt the business, that it's kind of held down that way?
100%. And I think I know at least one of the bigger companies. My hypothesis, it's actually backed up by some insider facts I've heard. Like, they don't want anyone to be that big, because it's easier to control one big star as opposed to other people getting over. They'll leave you. Look at what Rob and try to do. You know, it's from a motor standpoint, it's a smart move, but from a talent standpoint, it's not good. And that's, I think, a major why I'm not there anymore, because I'm not going to like be, you know, someone has their hand out and they dictate what you get. No, I would much rather take my chances and kind of like live my life my own way and do it. And again, I'm not knocking anyone there. Like, no, there's guys that are there that are doing great. But just me personally, you know, again, I never got the special treatment some of the guys did. My job was to go out there, get over, and I did that. Okay, didn't work out. Who cares? At least I can kind of like dictate my own life. And I mean, I'm happier now than I ever have been, you know, kicking it in Malibu and just doing my thing.
It's great to hear. Once again, for those just joining us here on Vibe 105, we're being joined by NWA wrestler Aron Stevens. Aron, I want to get some of the questions, because when people heard you're going to come on, I'm sure you can imagine the kind of questions I would get here, but there's one that actually caught my eye here. Somebody wants to know about when you were in Chaotic Wrestling. You came out one time in the group One Night Stand, and it was to Britney Spears. What was the story behind that?
Well, here's Aron Stevens, and I came down. When we were the One Night Stand, we came down to the finals. I initially got together with I was Aron Stevens, and I just was like, okay, what's contemporary now between Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera? And I found Britney Spears music more offensive. So I just used that.
Wow. And did you think that, was there a long-term plan for that, or was that just like for the one-time thing with the group?
Let's see what happens, and it was great, and that was it.
And another question that a lot of people want to know here is, I guess if you were to go back to WWE, you're doing a great job in NWA, but if you were to go back to WWE, would you want to bring the karate character with you?
Answer that question. If the situation called for it, absolutely. If the situation didn't call for it, no. I say that with every character. You know? That's an intellectual savior, the stunt, whatever. It's a situational thing.
And as we wrap up here, it's a holiday season now. It's a holiday special here on Vibe 105. So just want to get to know, what are your top three, I guess, favorite Christmas movies to watch during this time of year?
Okay. National Lampoon's Vacation. To me, that is top of the list. Have to watch it every year. Cousin Eddie. Big. and in any of the movies, from the regular Vacation to Vegas Vacation, but that Randy Quaid as Cousin Eddie, if I'm in a bad mood, I will watch that, and I can't be in a bad mood. One of my favorite, no, it is my favorite Christmas movie of all time. Then I think A Christmas Story. Who can argue with that? Right? Ralphie and the Red Ryder BB gun. That's kind of, my sister actually, when it's on, because we have Christmas Eve at my parents' house and then Christmas at my aunt's house, like it's on all the time. And God, all right, so third, I'm trying to think here. Early Christmas, I'll say.
Great choices there. Great choices. Aron, I'd like to thank you here before we wrap up. How can our listeners follow you on social media?
You can go to Twitter at Aron's Thoughts, ARONS Thoughts, or Instagram, Aron's Files, ARONS Files. And I am going to say this, I am boycotting Hershey's products because they changed the Hershey's Kiss Christmas commercial this year. I'm all for a thing, but you know what? If you're going to do a new version, at least keep airing the old one. So I'm done with Hershey's right now. This is my personal thing. I am insulted that they have ruined the holiday. Like 2020, we had this awful year, and they give us that, really, and you don't air the original, the one since 1989. I'm offended. I'm absolutely offended at that. So I'm calling for a boycott of Hershey's.
You heard it right here on Vibe 105. Send them a message there if you're Hershey, somebody in the higher ups. Fix this.
No, I already tweeted it out. Absolutely disgusted. At least run, side by side. But
yeah, it's a great idea. And also, you're on Cameo too. Give you an opportunity to promote that. How can they get an inspirational message, a birthday shout out from you on Cameo?
Yeah, go to Cameo. I have a link in my Twitter. So yeah. There you go.
I'd like to thank you for sharing your time and coming on Vibe 105 to talk all things wrestling and the holidays for this holiday special, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you too. Thank you.
That was Aron Stevens of the NWA. Now we're going to send it back to the studio for more programming right here on Vibe 105.
And now back to your Vibe 105.